basic and secondary education has a core mandate of providing access to quality, relevant, and inclusive basic and secondary education. And in doing so, we, as a social sector, have various services that we offer. Some of them purely social safety nets. The classrooms we construct are supposed to provide shelter for the learners. The school environment, conducive school environment that we create is supposed to make the students very comfortable in the four corners of the school. And we have various policies that ensure that when they come into the school system, nothing happens to them until they go home. Like zero tolerance to corporal punishment, zero tolerance to sexual harassment, zero tolerance to bullying, all are there to ensure that the child, when in school, is comfortable. We provide school meals. This is by far one of the biggest activity we do in terms of social welfare, and we do this in partnership with WFP, who have been providing the service for over 5 decades. Since 1970, they've been providing this service alone without government intervention. We want to thank them for bringing some of us up. Some of us would recall in our days, we were enticed by the delicious meals that they provide, and they were, in fact, reasons for the increased enrollment and retention in school. The crack wheat, the Uncle Ben's, edible fat, you name it, the early morning cup of milk, all, were provided for us, not just to fill our stomachs, but also to provide those vital nutrients that we need for our growth and development and at that age. As I said, we also provide other services. We provide support to our girl child. At one point, there was a concern that girls were not going to school. We came up with a campaign called the Girl Education. We have the PEJEP program. Now we have more girls in school than boys. And if in performance, girls are doing better than boys in all areas. To ensure that girls go to school regularly, we have specialized units, the gender units, that provides support, guidance, and counseling, and even materials, sanitary pads, for instance, to ensure that no child, is absent from school for any reason. We have our special needs education unit. This is responsible, the unit is responsible for the welfare of the students with challenges, physical challenges, visual challenges, hard of hearing, all are taken care of in line with our policy of leaving no child at home. For us, every child who should go to school should be in the classroom. We also provide services like the school transportation services. And this is in three components. We have the school bus service that covers the urban areas. We also have other means of transportation in the provinces, like the donkey cart. In the provinces, in some areas, the terrain is challenging. It is the only suitable and sustainable form of transportation. And it has been piloted and found to be very suitable for those areas. Upkeep is very, the cost for upkeep is very minimal, no procurement of fuel. The only spare parts or challenges you have is a punctured tire, which could easily be fixed, and to ensure that the donkey is well taken care of, well fed, and well looked after. We also provide
DPS, sorry, I'm afraid.
and as a form of transportation. So since I'll have another round to chat with you, I want to stop here for a while. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's like the 3 minutes is a no-go area. I've given them 5 minutes, and yet still the 5 minutes is not enough. So I'm very sorry, but you'll have another round. You can finish up whatever is remaining. And thank you so much. And I now welcome Director at the Ministry of Health. Director, you are welcome.
Thank you very much, moderator, and good morning once again. I'm humbled and privileged to be here to actually discuss on the first topic related to social protection services that are being implemented by the Ministry of Health. And I must say that the primary determinant of health, meaning good health, is actually both economic and social. So you cannot actually separate the two. And health is as a result of fair socio-economic development. So for that being the case, the Ministry of Health are actually implementing various programs to boost the health of the general public. Among these programs, we have 7 big categories. One of them is the immunization program for the children, and the other one is the school health program. And we also have the reproductive maternal child health program. And we also have the much talked about program, which is the civil registration and vital statistics, which is the birth and death registration. We also have the HIV program and TB, and also the big elephant, which is the NHIS, as a social protection mechanism for the country. So basically, to start with the immunization program, the Gambia provide free immunization services for all the under 5s. Once you are born in the Gambia, the government, together with support from partners, especially Gavi and UNICEF, provide incentives in the form of procurement of vaccines for the country to be able to actually immunize every child, and not only every child, including mothers for TT. So all these services are free of charge, for every individual born in the Gambia. And as part of the provision, we further go down in terms of decentralization to reach, less privileged communities in the form of outreach station. So we don't actually allow them to trek kilometers to get to access to these services. Instead, the ministry reach out to those communities as a form of outreach services to prevent them from paying fare, especially for the poor. So these are weekly treks, provide big incentives and reduce cost for the poor, in terms of accessing healthcare services. So in terms of the school health program, the ministry joins with the secondary and basic education together with the support from WFP to provide school programs like deworming of children, to make sure that at least they stay healthy, come to school, so that at least the learning outcome that the Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education, targets are actually met. So we collaborate with the basic and secondary education with the support from WFP to make sure that this type of services are actually provided. Another big area that we provide to every woman in this country is the free maternal and child health services in the country. Gambia has been one of the first to start for the past 20 years, free maternal and child health services. And this has actually helped in reducing the maternal mortality, although it's still unacceptably high. When I say unacceptably, a single mother dying from maternal mortality is unacceptable. More or less 2 or 3 or 4. So, but our target as a country is to actually meet the SDG goal that we set ourselves. We missed out as a country to achieve the MDG by 2015, by 75%, according to the target. But we were around 70%. We were able to reduce from 1,090 to 433 by 2015. Meaning 1,090 per 100,000. That's the maternal mortality ratio from 1,090 per 100,000 to 433 per 100,000. Although we've not achieved the 75% reduction according to the MDG target, but we were there very close. And now is the SDG by 2030. And this reduction is also in line with the policy that we have, 2021-2030, that the Gambia must strive and must put all resources together in achieving the SDG target of reducing maternal mortality to 70 per 100,000. As we are now, we are 289 per 100,000. So we hope that we will accelerate the gains to reach to the SDGs target. So we have other quickly programs like we also offer free birth certificates, meaning every under 5-year-old is we provide you free birth certificate, which is also a social protection mechanism because it's a fundamental human right. Right to nationality, right to identity is paramount, and this is courtesy from UNICEF and also WHO and World Bank as part of the supporting health in achieving its social protection goals. So last but not the least is the big 3-in-1 disease category, the HIV, TB, and malaria. These are also, we provide free services for these 3 core diseases because especially HIV, we all know that for now is a lifelong disease that needs continuous support, protection, and continuous funding in terms of once you are enrolled, for now, you need to take medication until God decides, but we have special funding as we speak now from the Global Fund to actually provide medication and some little support to people that are living with HIV and AIDS and also TB. And also we are trying to incentivize the access to TB services so that we reduce the catastrophic cost of accessing services. So basically, these are some of the strategies that or activities we are implementing at the Ministry of Health. And I learned that yesterday, the coordinator dwelled more on the NHIS as a form of social protection. Yes, it is, and the ministry have started actually implementing, although it's slow, but we are actually working, in actually starting the implementation of the National Health Insurance Scheme for the Gambia, so that we at least protect people from catastrophic health expense.
Thank you, Director. Thank you so much. Auntie Bintu, what do you all say? Rema Bemade. I just skip you. Yeah, so sorry about that. Um, Instead of giving it to the Jola man, I should have given it to my own auntie. So sorry about that. The Ministry of Agriculture, represented by Deputy Permanent Secretary, Auntie Bintu, you are welcome.
Thank you very much. It so happened that I am the odd one out here, so maybe that's the reason why you felt, okay, you should jump me, huh? It's okay, it's all right. Thank you very much. Good morning. By way of introduction, we know the Ministry of Agriculture. I don't know what history. I will not say that every sector, but everything starts with that, because food is everything. Without food, agriculture is a two-way stream. First, agriculture will contribute to social protection um, by, sustaining livelihood, particularly the people in the rural areas. We know most of our farmers are from the rural areas, so they feed themselves and feed the people in the urban areas. But their main livelihood, their income generation activities, everything is primarily dependent on agriculture. So that's why I feature them out. And also, the focus of the focus of social protection also is linked to agricultural production, simply because if you provide social protection to agricultural production, that you might have provided the source, the factors of production, which is that you will support the availability of land, the availability of inputs, also the availability of income, and also training for farmers. So that's social protection to agriculture and agriculture to social production. So it's vice versa. So that's what the Ministry of Agriculture do. We provide social protection to ensure food security, and we do this through crop production and also animal production. Crop production, we have a special department, that's the Department of Agriculture, that's responsible for ensuring crop production, and also the Department of Livestock, ensuring the increase of animal production and also animal health. The Ministry of Agriculture, through government, also provided funds for the implementation of activities that are social protection related. So government is the main provider of social protection when it comes to agriculture. However, there are other stakeholders. We know there are people in the private sector and private farmers who also contribute to this. The only issue is we have no data to show exactly the extent of agriculture's contribution to social protection, but we know government is doing its part, and the private sector is also doing its part. So all we need is to coordinate our efforts and be able to find out or calculate how much exactly agriculture is contributing to social protection. So the ministry has been coordinating a lot of interventions to really support farmers, particularly the vulnerable farmers and smallholder farmers, to manage risk more effectively and to improve food production and productivity. And this would include extension services, provision of mixed farming centers, and farmer field schools. This is where farmers would interact as peers and they will be trained in good agricultural practices. So there, farmers will learn more because it's farmer to farmer, peer to peer. I have done this, I have succeeded, you have seen it in practice, and you can also follow suit. So that is what they do, and we've seen a lot of progress in that. And also, the ministry also ensured the provision of fertilizer and also subsidies. Way of also helping them to raise their income, because when they grow these seeds, they also earn income, and then this is supplied to farmers. So you have certified seeds that is supplied to farmers to increase their production and productivity. Mechanization by the provision of tractors, farm implements is also an area that the Ministry of Agriculture is supporting so that we increase production and productivity. Also, tax exemptions. When you bring in this, all farmers, whether government or private sector, they write to us to exempt them from taxation. So we give them a duty waiver, they bring in their agricultural implement and then do their farming. So we also have social protection through our projects. We have 6 main projects at the Ministry of Agriculture, but for this year, government has allocated 448.3 million to crop and animal production. That is for the year 2023. And the projects that under CPCU is the Central Project Coordination Unit under the Ministry of Agriculture. I told you you will have to give me more time. Yesterday, I warned you. CPCU also coordinate the implementation of all projects that are under the Ministry of Agriculture. And this year, currently they have a portfolio of 178.8 million US dollars, which are mobilized from our traditional donors FAO, IFAD, IDB, African Development Bank, you name them. So all these resources are intended to enhance food security. And these projects are the Global Agriculture and Food Security Project, Small Ruminant Project, the Rice Value Chain Transformation, Agriculture Value Chain, the Gambia Inclusive and Resilient Agriculture Value Chain, the Giraffe, and we have the famous Roots Project. And am I?
Yes, I'll give you another minute to
Okay,
come back.
thank you. That's what I have for now.
Thank you so much. I will. I'll solely give you another minute to come back because the trespass I did earlier. So thank you so much. Before I move to Mr. Fofana, we would like to acknowledge the presence of our guest from Kenya. They came yesterday rather, and we want to welcome them to the Gambia International Social Protection Conference. Our guest, Jacinta Omondi. Jacinta, you are welcome to the Gambia. And then we have Paul Joroki. Yes, Paul Joroki. Okay, Paul, you are welcome to the Gambia. We are really grateful having you in our midst. And I hope you have a nice stay and enjoy the Gambia a little. Jeringen Jeff, you can start learning from there. Jeringen Jeff. All right, I would now like to invite Mr. Malam Fofana to represent Nana. Mr. Fofana, you're welcome.
Thank you, Tom. Good morning once again. My name is Malang N. Fofana, the Deputy Director of NANA. NANA is National Nutrition Agency, established 23 years ago by an Act of Parliament under the Office of the Vice President, with a mandate to coordinate all nutrition activities in the country. NANA's operations are guided by the national nutrition policies and accompanying strategic plans that are used to provide social justice, equity, inclusive productive growth, with the aim to address the underlying causes of nutrition or malnutrition, which include poverty, unemployment, social and economic vulnerabilities, food and insecurity, inequality, exclusion, and other threats to sustainable development. NANA works with and through partners to implement programs. These include programs that are nutrition specific and nutrition sensitive, with a view to achieve our vision of a malnutrition-free Gambia that ensures a healthy and sustainable living for all. Everybody should be inclusive as far as our programs are concerned. For our programs on nutrition-specific interventions, these are focused mainly on addressing the vulnerable population, mainly women and children, particularly focusing on the 1,000 window of opportunity. This is a period when damages are done in terms of nutrition, and nothing is done to correct it. You will live with it for life. And I'll take a quote from the ADB president, who once says, "When bridges are broken, we can amend them. When roads are broken, we can amend them. When tables are broken, we can amend them. But when the brain is broken, you can never amend." So that's why NANA's interventions are focused on the 1,000 window opportunity. This is a period where if damage is happening to the brain, you can intervene to correct it. One of our interventions is maternal, infant, and young child feeding programs that try to ensure optimal nutrition for all, especially women and children. This program is implemented across the country in the communities and health facilities together with the Ministry of Health. We also have the integrated management of acute malnutrition. This program looks at two aspects. Those children that are found to be severely malnourished and they need intervention, particularly if they have underlying infections, are admitted at the health facilities or at the CREM, where the underlying infection is treated. They are also rehabilitated using ready-to-use therapeutic feeds. These are specially made feeds that are procured to support the rehabilitation of malnourished children in health facilities. For those that are mildly malnourished, we have programs at the community level, at the same time at the facility level, which looks at the supplementation using fortified corn soya blend through WFP and other partners. This is all geared toward ensuring that no child is malnourished in the country. We also have micronutrient control programs. We know anemia, vitamin A deficiency, iron deficiency, and disorders are a public health threat to the country. And these have their consequences on the life and livelihood of people, especially women and children. This is also a program that we are implementing with the Ministry of Health and other partners. Anemia, for example, we provide iron folate tablets that are distributed through the Central Medical Store with the Ministry of Health, and this is then distributed to the health facilities through the supply chain system used by the Ministry of Health, and every pregnant woman is given iron folate tablet to prevent them from becoming anemia, because we know what anemia does to children and women. These are all geared toward building a strong foundation for human capital development. Before you build a house, you have to ensure there's a strong foundation. And these programs are geared toward building that strong foundation for our human capital development. We also have programs that are nutrition sensitive. These programs mainly focus on addressing food and nutrition security. These include programs and projects, one of which is to ensure we promote dietary diversification, looking at the quality and quantity of food that people are consuming through social behavior and communication. This is done through, for example, projects and programs. One of the programs that we did, or projects, was the Maternal and Child Nutrition Health Resource Project, MCNHRP, that also have two cash transfers, one conditional and one unconditional. The conditional cash transfer is geared towards addressing a very strong socio-cultural belief that is ingrained in our society, in that women, when they are pregnant, they try to conceal their pregnancy until when it's obvious. And every pregnant woman should book at the clinic in the first trimester, in the first 3 months of their pregnancy. This is a very strong belief in our women folk. So this conditional cash transfer is trying to break that cycle. And alhamdulillah, we are successful in that. Many women are now booking early in their pregnancies. The unconditional cash transfer was to support vulnerable households with input in terms of small ruminant, poultry, backyard garden, or food processing equipment, together with a cash transfer to cushion them from selling those inputs. And this also goes along with social behavior and communication, for them to have understanding on how to make use of those inputs. At the same time, we also have a program that we implement with our partners, especially the Minister of Health and the Director of Social Welfare, which is the building resilient through social cash transfer for nation security, the BRESS. This one is a cash transfer that looks at mother baby pair in catchment area of health facility that has higher rate of malnutrition, where we provide cash at the same time also provides social behavior and communication. These two programs, towards the end of these two programs, we have the social safety net project, where the NAFA program, which is the biggest cash transfer in this country, is implemented together with our partners, the Department of Community Development, the Director of Social Welfare, the National Social Protection Secretariat, where we are targeting 16,966 households, benefiting over 1,089,000 individuals in the country, with a bi-monthly cash transfer of $3,000 together with social behavior and communication to smooth consumption of basic services, education, food diversity, and education, and health, and so forth. But at the same resilience to ensure that they are lift from extreme poverty, not even not poor, but they can be very close to the poverty line. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you again for that brilliant deliberation. I know if I want to allow everybody to finish, we will spend the whole day here. This is not because people like talking too much, but because they have a lot to say. On that note, I thank you all for the presentations. And I hope you will understand when I say, okay, I want to give you another chance. Now, next, I want to give chance to the National Coordinator. Mr. Diba, you are welcome.
Thank you. Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Jao, and also thank you to my fellow panelists for setting the pace. The National Social Protection Secretariat is in response to Social Protection Priority 5, as I stated yesterday, which is building the coordination structures, which was found to be almost non-existent when the policy was developed in 2015. The Social Protection Secretariat supports the National Social Protection Steering Committee, which meets every quarter, and the subcommittees which we recently established should also be meeting every quarter. Now, the Secretariat's mandate is basically implementing the policy directions from the National Social Protection Steering Committee, which is tasked to lead the country in terms of guidance for policy and implementation of social protection. Now, the steering committee comprises ministries, department, agencies, development partners, NGOs, and also, I think, civil society. So basically, the Secretariat implements their direction on a day-to-day basis. So through the different channels, so I'll talk about the two main channels, and I hope Jao compensates me and give me more time. So one of the main tools at our disposal is the Gambia Social Registry. As I stated yesterday, I will not delve more into it. There is a whole presentation on the Gambia Social Registry. But basically, at the program level, we want every social protection activity or implementation to be channeled through the social registry. Now, if we are able to achieve that, we are able to see who is intervening in which area and what they are doing. Now, if in order to coordinate a sector better, if you know everything about the sector, then it's easy to coordinate. But if you don't even know the players in the sector, it's difficult to coordinate. So as a result, the social registry is an enabling factor for coordination at the program level. Now, the policy also tasks us to monitor the sector to know what is happening. If you are responsible for coordinating a sector and you don't know what is happening there, there is no form of monitoring, that becomes difficult. That's why we are also having the high-level monitoring framework overlooking the social assistance sector. Recently, we just validated the M&E plan and the M&E framework, and we also have the compendium of indicators. Now, this is developed in consultation with the implementing partners. Each of them, under the 5 priority areas, discuss over a couple of months, probably 3 to 4 months, and then agree on high-level indicators that will be used to check the progress of the sector over that period. So also we produce the annual report. We started it last year, so we know what is in the sector. So broadly, our mandate and our activities will fit into this, and if given the chance again, we can expand more. Thank you, Yao.
Thank you so much, Mr. Diba, for being brief. And then I will give you another chance to come back. But this is good. Thank you so much. Once again, let us give the panelists a round of applause. In our discussions, we realized that our second question must have been dealt with by most of us. So I will just open it. You can look at it. If you have not talked about it, then you can just briefly go through it. Because when you mention the programs you are doing, in most instances, you talk about what impact they have for the vulnerable people or for your targeted beneficiaries. So if at all you have dealt with it, you can just finish up some of the programs that you wanted to mention and you did not. And then the third question, because we are running out of time, is going to be, what challenges do you face during the process of implementing these programs? What challenges are there that we are facing? And then probably the final one is, what lessons can we learn from you during the implementation of your program? What lessons have you learned that you want to share with us that we can also learn from you? So we will take, again, 3 minutes. Please don't take 5. 3 minutes, right? Please. Director?
Thank you very much, Mala. As I've said earlier, I want to dilate now more on achievements for some of the services Minister of Gender, Children and Social Welfare undertaking. Like, for example, the Welfare of Gambians program, every quarter, Department of Social Welfare gives 250,000 every quarter to 150 beneficiaries. So if you calculate that in a year, we give 600 beneficiaries benefit from $1 million annually. Well, this depends on the amount of allocation given to the ministry. Sometimes monthly allocation for the ministry will be minimal, and for that matter, the 250,000 I mark for the quarter to be given to the beneficiaries are not given. So, but in general, we provide 600 beneficiaries with 2,000 cash transfer value quarterly. This is the reason why we have planned to, this family strengthening program together with the National Social Protection Secretariat, so that we can increase this transfer value and improve on the coverage of from 600 to 2,000 beneficiaries. So that is the achievement we have in that area. So for the training of the inmates from the Joshua prisons, we have managed to train about 50 inmates that have been discharged on this vocational training to prevent them from reoffending. On the assistive devices and the equipment, Ministry have spent $6 to $8 million to purchase specialized equipment for the manufacture of prostheses for the persons with disabilities. That is the artificial limbs production at our workshop in Banjul. Ministry spent $6 to $8 million to purchase those machines and also buy some wheelchairs and a white cane for visually impaired. That was done in 2021 to 2022. Those are some of the achievements that ministry have achieved during the past 2 years. I wanted to mention also one of the social protection activities undertaken by government and the ministry. That was the Women Enterprise Fund. About 600 women couples benefited from disbursement of monies from ministry to undertake entrepreneurial activities to open businesses for the women. So these are some of the achievements that ministry have undertaken in the past 2 years. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Director. DPS, 3 minutes.
Thank you very much once again. With regards to the achievements of the Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education, I don't think I need to delve in that a lot. Let's look at ourselves. Our role is to have an accomplished citizen. How many accomplished citizens do we have in this hall alone? Much more in the country. We've improved enrollment in schools, retention, and now we can only talk about pockets of out-of-school children. So our gross enrollment rate is almost getting to 100% now. That's a big one. For the school feeding program, we've improved enrollment, as I said, attendance, performance, and retention. We've also contributed to the increment of domestic food production. In collaboration with the Ministry of Agriculture, we provide the market for the produce. Farmers no longer need to worry about where to sell their products. In fact, at one point, our partners are around. We are even careful as to how much we procure from the local market, instead of fearing that we may cause some problems in the system. The income of the farmers, yes, we helped improve it. Now the smallholder farmers can now enjoy an increment in their income. Overall health and nutrition status of the children is improved. My two colleagues from Ministry of Health and NANA have indicated our collaboration, and through that we help to improve the health status of the children as they go through that critical stage of their life. We've moved from a system where food is imported into the country for the school feeding program to a situation where we now talk about homegrown school feeding program. That is a big step towards sustainability. So the issue can go on. Under gender, the gender unit, as I said, more girls in school performing even better than their colleagues. Now they don't have to worry about challenges when they are seeing their monthly, periods. They go to school as usual. Nobody even, know anything is happening. The guidance and counseling system, girls are now very much empowered to take care of themselves. We also have the school bus services that ensure that children go to school and go home very comfortably. No exploitation, no fear of exploitation or harassment. We have the inclusive education unit. Here, our schools are accessible, both physically and in all aspects. Whether you are physically challenged, we have ramps to go into the classrooms freely. We also have started integrating these students. Instead of sending them to special needs schools, now we send them to normal schools and provide them with polyvalent teachers so that when they graduate, there is no challenge for them to reintegrate into the society. So definitely.
Thank you, DPS. Yeah. Sorry about that, DPS. We are seriously challenged with time. We have some of the next presentation, some of the virtual presenters are having issues with the time. So we just want to take this strictly. We stick by the time, please. DPS, is your turn now.
Okay. When I had the floor the last time, I talked about what we do at agriculture, and I stopped at the projects and what the projects contribute to social protection in the Gambia. And this is done through enhancing food and nutrition security through the promotion of climate-smart crop and livestock production, and also enhance income and value addition for the farming population, especially vulnerable groups. And we all know what it means to add value to our products. We used to sell our products as we produce them, the primary products. But some people will come, buy our products, add value, and gain more, maybe 3-4 times what we are getting. So value addition is really, really important in crop and production. And agriculture also is employing a lot of people, especially women. So that's another thing, agriculture, I think it's the biggest employer in the country. And also we build resilience of farmers in the face of the current climate change. And that's why if you are a good media person, you will see that the president has just launched the smart farming technology. And we're doing transforming the values of products so that we meet the regional, and international standards. And that we are working with the, how do we call it, quality QS something, FSQ. Yeah, we're working with FSQA to ensure that our products have quality and we can send them to the international market, and also for our own for our own protection, because we need to eat quality and safe food, as Nana would agree with me. We also promoting women and youth farm-led crops and livestock, and we have vegetable production, ruminants, small ruminants, and poultry and processing, as well as marketing of these products. So most of the achievements the projects are making, we have the gas SIP project. I don't know has reached 75,000 farmers with improved capacity on production, processing, and marketing. Also provided 120 SMEs support with BDS. BDS is Business Development Service. We also have 500 hectares of land benefiting 1,500 rice farmers. As they were supported with plowing services, mechanization to reduce drudgery of farmers, and also supported the production of 946 metric tons of vegetables from 25 gardens with an estimated value of 40.2 million. This benefited 2,500 women vegetable growers in 4 regions, the West Coast, CRR North and South, and LRR. Then we also provide climate resilient seeds. When we say climate resilient seed, we mean seeds that are resilient to the harsh effects of climate change. So they have cultivated 1,167.8 hectares of groundnut, maize, cowpea, cassava, and orange fresh sweet potato. This benefited 1,248 small farmers. I think I will stop there for this project. But basically, most of the projects are they're targeting different regions, they're targeting different groups, but collectively, cumulatively, all of them are doing this, and there are slight differences because some of the projects are basically providing also matching grants for farmers who want to go into commercial farming. And most of the beneficiaries are women and youth. So we have community poultry farmings. You have the rice value chain. We should all bear in mind that currently the price of rice is high rocketing by the day. And that's a problem for a lot of Kiankas, they eat rice a lot. So Ministry of Agriculture is negotiating with partners like Maru Farms, like
Mohamed Jah,
and the other jars, so that we can extend rice production to a level where we will not be importing rice anymore. And other partners are involved, FAO and Africa Rice, and currently farmers access. WFP, yes, WFP.
thank you, DVS, thank you. We invite Director, Minister of Health.
Yeah, thank you very much. Some of the achievements that the ministry have actually achieved during the implementation of these social protection activities are as follows. For immunization, we all know that Gambia is known for its high coverage in terms of immunization, and in the sub-region is one of the high performer in terms of immunization, and the coverage still is above 90% for DPT3. We have antigens that we use to benchmark the performance of the health system in terms of coverage for immunization. And for maternal and child health services that we have been actually providing to the people, we have seen a decline in terms of maternal mortality, as I said earlier. But this is as a result of the increase in skill delivery in our facilities. We used to have people that actually deliver in our facility used to be 57%, but we have realized that it has gone to above 95%. It's around 97%, health facility delivery. But although the skill delivery is less than the health facility delivery, because we realize that we still need adequate human resource in our facilities to actually deliver all the women that are coming to the facilities. We also have, we're still able to keep the HIV, pandemic below 2%, as a country. And we are now, we were 1.9, and we are able to actually keep the pandemic below 2% as a result of some of the services that we are providing to HIV patients. And on the civil registration, the just concluded birth certificate registration, we are able to at least register above 53% Gambians into the new electronic birth certificate. And it is still available now, and we have successfully now decentralized it, and it is across all the public health facilities, in the length and breadth of the country. And for some of the services that we are providing as part of the social protection, as I said, because malaria treatment in our public facilities are free, and we are now at the pre-elimination stage as a sub-Saharan Africa country. So we hope that we will achieve the elimination as a country. And we also have in terms of the TB treatment success rate is above 66%. So which shows that a lot of our people have been treated successfully from TB. Also, in terms of under 5 neonatal mortality, under 5 mortality and morbidity, we have seen a decline from 2013 to date. So in general, although the achievements are not what actually we wanted, our hope is to actually achieve the SDG targets, but we are actually moving slowly towards the target, and we are very optimistic that by the time we come in 2030, we will be able to actually achieve all the major SDG targets that are also related to health and are also related to social protection in this country. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Director. Deputy Executive Director, your turn.
Thank you, Tom. I'm not going to talk about the financial achievements, but structural achievements that we have done. In our programs, we have established delivery mechanisms that are very helpful in achieving results. One of these is the establishment of the VSGs in the village support in the Baby Friendly Community Initiative communities, which are used to disseminate information to the mothers and the public, especially those living in the community. These are indigenous people who are part and parcel of the culture. They are trained, they are coached, they are mentored, and they are used as catalysts in the communities to break some of the cultural sensitive issues that are in the communities. That's one of the achievements that we do, and this can be used by any other program, because other programs have been using them to promote their programs. The other thing is there is an increase in adoption of desirable behaviors through behavior change communication. We have seen people adopting behaviors that are important for their well-being. A typical example is exclusive breastfeeding. In the past few, about 10 years ago, if you ask women not to give their babies water for 6 months, it's like thinking that you are crazy. But now that's a norm almost in every household. Almost every mother is doing exclusive breastfeeding. These are as a result of the fact that they have now understand the importance of that through SPCC. And we are also seeing people increasing access to services. Jibril has talked about skilled delivery of health facility delivery. That's through SPCC. People are now increasing the use of services. We have seen people increasing ANC, early ANC booking, like I said earlier on. All these are just towards ensuring that so people are. But specifically on capacity building, we did a lot of capacity building of stakeholders, to know what to do and how to do it. And the other achievement is regarding the NAFA program in specifically. We have seen that we're dealing with extreme poor households. They are now consuming diversified diet. Almost 80% of the households are now consuming diversified diet. This is because of the fact that they have knowledge, understanding of what diversified diet means, but they also have the wherewithal, with the cash that they have, to provide that diversified diet in their household. All this together with what we are doing, what education is doing, what health is doing, what agriculture is doing, and all of you are doing, we are seeing a decrease in malnutrition in this country. If you look at DHS 2013 and 2020, there's a big decrease in stunting, wasting, and underweight and anemia. All these geared towards what all of us are doing. Thank you very much.
National Coordinator.
I already spoke about the establishment of the Gambia Social Registry, and of course the fact that we now have a monitoring framework. So the main achievement I would now want to talk about is working on the legal framework of what we do, and to ensure there is clarity in the social assistance sector, which is the cabinet approval of the social protection bill, which has now been submitted to the National Assembly. So in a month's time, or probably later this month, we expect the first reading, and that will be the first direct legislation on the social assistance sector. So we are looking forward to the bill being passed, and then of course with the attendant regulation after, which will give clarity and guidance as to what should happen in the sector. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Once again, we give the entire team a round of applause. So I'm not going back to them now, because if I should go back to them, I'll not be able to manage the time. So I'll go to the floor. I'll allow you to also ask questions if you have any question to our panelists. Maybe you want to make a clarification on something that was said, or you have a contribution you want to make. We will take some few questions from the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's on. It's okay? Hello? It's on now. Thank you very much, Malang Jao. And let me also join you in thanking, of course, the panelists that we have here.
Control room, the mic is not on.
But it's on here anyway.
Control room, the mic is not on.
If they are getting me, I can speak loud. Hello? 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 Are you getting me? Hello? It's on now? Is this the only mic here?
You can go ahead.
Thank you. And I want to thank the panelists for those brilliant presentations. Of course, we really have an insight of what you are doing as an institution and department. But I also want to ask you, Mala, whether I can ask many questions for different panelists, of course, if it is possible. But they are very critical as far as I'm concerned. Thank you. The first question goes to the Directorate of Social Welfare. And thank you very much, Jankoba. You mentioned about your family strengthening program. Yes, my question is, I wanted to ask about the Transfer Valley, but of which your second interventions, you were able to clarify that. And what I'm interested in is knowing is like the coverage for this. Is this a national program or it's just a piloted program? So what is the coverage and also the duration of that program? I understand you about to work with EU to extend this. So if it is a national program, we may want to know, and how is the selection done? Is it a pilot or a whole program for this country? The second thing that I wanted to ask is, are there any plan for supporting the elderly? Somebody mentioned it here yesterday. as a program like we have seen in other countries, for example, Kenya, they have this cash transfer or social assistance activities for the elderly people. And in that, if you decide to have that as a program, what age are we going to start with? Because that will also depend on the resource envelope for this country. I've seen in other countries starting from age 75. As a country, what are we going to do? What of the age brackets are we going to take as a country to do this? My next question goes to the Minister of Agriculture. It's important for the country to have a project, because if you look at it, most of the project is trying to set the space for government to know, yes, this is a viable venture. It's important for the country to adopt it as a program. For example, the food and biofortification project we had in the past with FAO, UP, supported by the EU. In that project, Minister of Agriculture plays a very critical role, like the Minister of Health and NANA, in which we are trying to bring back the biofortified crop that were lost in the past, for example, the orange fresh Swiss potato. And of course, part of the program, Minister of Health was supposed to multiply some of these biofortified crop and also redistribute them to the farmers. And of course, a good number of them, like the yellow maize, the cowpeas, the seeds were satisfied and kept in the NSS, like you mentioned. This can be redistributed every season. But the worry or the concern is the biofortified crop, like the orange fresh sweet potato, the cuttings. This, to keep them, is very difficult. And some of the information that we are getting from the field through the National Islands for Food Fortification is how do we keep those cuttings so that farmers can use them all year round, especially in your gardens, in the community gardens. So I don't know what plans do we have to support those community gardens in terms of water, so that at any given time they will have some of those biofortified crop, so that we don't experience what we experienced in the past. In the long run, we start losing some of those biofortified crop that can improve on the health and nutrition status of people and the Gambians. My next question goes to, I'm not sure whether that will be directed to NSPS or the Director of Social Welfare. Sometimes when I travel around the Kerava Avenue or around the traffic light towards the Barton Harding Highway, I see dozens of people begging. And the most unfortunate part, they'll be there with their kids, during which they should be in school. And sometimes you see them during the peak hours when people are closing from work, you see them with their kids approaching some of those vehicles. Are there any plan to, catalog some of those beggars that we have in the street? Because I was also made to understand that a good number of them are not Gambians. How do we get them captured in the social registry, and what can we do to keep them out of the kids, especially those kids that they move with along the streets? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I think I should have said, you can ask as many questions as possible, but remain in 1 minute.
Good morning, everyone. It seems as the AC is only concentrating on me. Huh? I'm shaking. Okay, yeah. Okay, thank you very much, the panelists. I think we heard you well. First of all, before saying anything, I would like to commend NSPS for their hard work. I think now, for the past months, you guys have been working a lot toward creating more awareness on your work. I can see that you have been partnering with influencers, artists, and the like. So I would like to ask you guys, the representative of NSPS, the coordinator, what efforts have you guys made toward trying to digitalize the payment systems that you guys are normally been doing? Because yesterday the presenter have seen here something like partnering with the fintech companies and the like, because it's kind of risky to park a lot of money in a carton and travel across the country just to go and pay people. Maybe I'm not actually sure of how the NAFA project is being done, but there was an instant I witnessed these microfinance people giving money to the villagers. For an instant, you place a box full of money. You called people from different villages just to come and receive this money. Physically, it can be too risky. It can lead to criminal acts and the like. So I want to ask the Minister of the Deputy Permanent Secretary from the Ministry of Basic Education, what efforts have you guys taken toward introducing digital literacy into our schools in the provinces, because I realize that many of these schools there are nothing like IT classes and the like. So what steps have you guys taken toward improving that? Because I haven't experienced it, but I'm sure it will be great for a parent to be guided, a parent to be guided by his or her child through a mobile device on how to withdraw or deposit or use these fintech apps. Thank you so much. I'm struggling to talk. Huh?
Oh, Tamsir. Yes, thank you. Thank you very much to all the panelists. What I'm coming to say, for me, I want to just make a contribution. After listening to all the panelists, you can see the link and the relationship in the work they are doing. To that point, I think the resolution from this 3-day workshop should include how do the sectors coordinate. Each of them, if you listen to their deliberation, is either talking about social protection in terms of provisional impact, or is prevention, is promotional, or is transformative, if you listen to them. And then I think to maximize also the intervention, the call for action should look at some of the interventions that have the potentials of bringing larger impact. And I take school feeding as an example. I don't know how far the Social Protection Secretariat is talking with the Ministry of Agriculture, but the new discourse in homegrown in school feeding, which is the homegrown school feeding, is actually a debate, convergence between agricultural policies and social protection policies. This is just an example. If you listen to the Education Deputy Permanent Secretary, all that he reported here have something to do with health, something to do with agriculture, something, although he talks about education. And if you combine both, you are talking about the protection of the society. So in short, social protection should take action to ensure that there is sectoral coordination in the planning and the implementation of social protection services in the country. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Alaji Jata. I work with the Department of Community Development. My office is in Basse. For me, actually, since yesterday, I've been listening to the deliberations, and I have not been hearing the councils being mentioned in the whole of this discussion. And to me, I feel the councils and the municipal councils are very key in social protection. Well, if you travel to some countries, you will realize that it's the councils and municipal councils that are responsible for the provision of social protection services to their people. So I want to ask here, where do councils stand here in the whole of this process? Thank you very much.
Thank you. I want to say something. Yeah.
Do you still need more questions, or you want to respond?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. My name is Alaji Gay, Department of Community Development. I want to thank Mr. Jawa and the whole panelists. My question goes to agriculture. I want to ask, if you happen to look at in the past, we usually have a lot of communities that were into rice production. But if you happen to look today, most of those fields, they are no more working. I don't know whether you have embarked on any feasibility study to see how best you can revive those rice fields, because in the absence of that, it will be very, very hard for this country to address food insecurity. If you happen to go to Sabah Sanjal, by then, Gen Sanjal used to produce a lot of rice, but now they cannot do it. Due to a lot of pests that are around the rice fields, we have a lot of hippos and a lot of other pests that normally intrudes the rice fields. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I know I have series of questions, but my first one will go to the Directorate of Social Welfare. I know when we talk about the issue of inclusivity of all vulnerable groups, one thing I've realized in this country is the fact that when it comes to the issue of mental health, these are people that we know that they fall within the most vulnerable group, but yet when you look at the attention given to them, it's not definitely forthcoming. I don't know whether there's any plan that you will able to have a roadmap to see how inclusive do we also take care of people with mental issues. The second one is you talked about the issue of cash transfer. I know at one point also too, whatever our interventions are, would definitely have to look at the element of sustainability. And I know for some time now you've been giving out this cash transfer. Is there any plan that you have that these families will not be dependent throughout the process? Because want to realize after project implementation, the span of the project is finished. Give it a few months down the line, all the achievement that you have gained is gone down the drain. Is there any program that you have to indicate that at the end of this project span, that these families will definitely move from where they are to a better level of their livelihood? The second one is on education. Again, linking to what the Directorate of Social Welfare have said, that when you looked at education, you have a whole itemized line for scholarship. But yet again, you go to this constitution of the Gambia, you go to the children out of the Gambia, they all talk about free compulsory basic education in the Gambia. So it is ironical that you are able to yet have a system that talks about free compulsory education, but yet you have a department that is putting money to education financing, especially around the issue of scholarship. How do we create that linkage? How do we give a better explanation to that? Again, you talked about the issue of accessibility. For me, accessibility shouldn't be only as the building structures we have. We talked about the issue of inclusivity in terms of children with disability. Yes, you talked about the issue of mainstreaming those children with disability into the main education system. But again, when you look at the contact hours of these children, as per those that have at least some little bit, well, one can say in terms of disability it's not of the same. But you have one itinerary teacher that goes around to school to actually have a contact hour with the children. How fairly treated are these children with disability in terms of the contact hours? Agriculture. So agriculture, sometimes when we talk about issue of agriculture, we realize that this is one of the ministries with the highly most funded with projects. And again, in terms of qualification, you realize that this is a ministry that has the highest qualification in this country. But when you look at the general landscape in terms of the livelihood of people, in terms of what we produce in this country, it's nothing to brag about. Now, my question would be, for Gambia to sustain itself in terms of agricultural productivity, the community-based farming, I know we do have community-based farming initiatives. How is agriculture actually strengthening this community-based farming initiative so that at the end of the day, communities are empowered to produce enough within communities so that at the end of the day, we reduce on the importation of community agricultural goods that we import in this country? Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. As had been introduced, I'm from the National Social Protection Secretariat in Kenya, and I just have one question. It didn't come out very clear, I think, to the presenters. First of all, let me thank you and just recognize the fact that social protection is multi-sectoral. There's no way one department can do it alone. But I just want to hear more about the street families. I just heard a bit, something very small. What are you doing for the street families? Thank you.
Still another round? Okay, let's take one from this end, and then we come over there. Thank you very much. I think I will join my colleagues to congratulate the panelists. That's a good piece of work we've seen over here. In particular, the national coordinator, he talked about legislation. Laws are there to govern people and systems. So we are very much concerned when laws reach billing stages, they get to enactment. My question here is, how prepared are we, or how prepared have we actually made our stakeholders in these legislations? Because the issue is this country, or Africa in general, amendments to legislative instruments normally take time. I mean, there is a flaw in the law, there is a deficiency in there. When does it go back to the National Assembly for the requisite amendment to be made? And that's why it's exclusively important that at the blueprint point, enough consultations are made with the stakeholders. And national coordinator, this is my concern, because you have already reached the billing stage, which we are congratulating you. It's a giant step, actually, in this direction. Okay, thank you very much.
So, Zenu, we are running out of time. Those that are on virtual, we are seriously running out of time. So, because we have only one lady, I wanted to give a second lady so that at least it stops there. Please. If not, our next session is seriously going to be affected.
Who is the lucky one?
Okay. Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. I just want to say to the panelists, thank you very much for this educative insight you've given us. But I just have two questions. And the first one is to the Director and Ministry of Health. You talked about free services for malaria, TB, HIV. But I am really concerned there are two diseases which are taking root in this country, diabetes and sickle cell. I don't know what plans you have to also include those two in your free services, because I know, I mean, my family, we have suffered somebody very young who died from sickle cell. I'm managing another one, and whenever she has the crisis, I'm like, oh God, I hope this is not the last time. And it is very expensive, because the drugs are very expensive, and they have to be taking it every day. So maybe you would also look into that and see how best you can also help those people. And then the next one is to social welfare. You talked about cash transfer for vulnerable families, women. Are you including widows also as vulnerable? And the widowers, because there are also men who have lost their wives or wife, and they may be also in that type of situation. So when you are giving these cash transfers to families, are you also giving it to widows and widowers, or are you just giving it to other families? Thank you.
Thank you so much. We go straight to the answers. Please let us know that there are people waiting online, so we can just shorten the discussion. Director, you want to start?
Thank you, Malam. First, I want to respond to the question from Assis. Okay, you asked about whether it's national or whether it's pilot. So this is a 2-year pilot project to be, implemented by the government, but it's going to be through budget support from EU. And it's going to be 2 years pilot, and it's going to be also national. The beneficiaries will be targeted through social registry in all the regions. Then the categories that will be selected, vulnerable children, older persons, and persons with disability. These 3 groups will be part of the project, but the selection will be through the single registry, social registry. The age bracket, we are still developing the guidelines. We have not yet agreed on the age, whether it's going to be 60, 65, or 70. We have not concluded that yet, but we are still working on that. So those three categories: persons with disabilities, older persons, and also vulnerable children. Those are going to be part of it. And the number of beneficiaries is going to be 3,000. And the transfer value is going to be monthly 1,000 monthly, and quarterly is 3,000 per beneficiary. So I hope that is clear. To also answer the question from the lady, whether the widows, so this is going to be through the single registry. So if the registry picks the widows, of course they'll be part of the beneficiaries. We are not going to select ourselves. We are going to go through the single registry. They are going to pick the beneficiaries. So they can be part of it. And also, Mr. Fati also asked about the sustainability. It's a 2-year project, pilot project, and if it goes well, then government will take over. It's going to be a program, and this will be accompanied by SBCC and mentoring, so that they can keep part of the cash transfer, then they can use it, to buy other small ruminants or embark on petty trading, for sustainability. Thank you very much. I think you mentioned. That one. Special program. That can be a special program, but it cannot be part of this project. So since, in fact, I think I can also talk about the street families also, because when somebody asks about street families, here we have beggars, but I don't know whether they can be classified as street families, or I don't know. Okay, maybe that one can have a special program of its own, different from this project. Yeah.
Thank you, Director. We move to the next answer. Sorry? I'm so sorry about that, because we are running out of time completely. Yes, so sorry about that. Is your question not answered? Oh, okay.
For mental health, we work with Ministry of Health. Okay, you want to talk about? Okay.
All right, thank you. DPS, Mopsy?
Okay, thank you very much. The first question was about the introduction of digital literacy. You would recall during the time of COVID, Gambia was the one of the first countries that responded through our distance education. And we have a program for distance education and digital education. But when we piloted it, the challenge is the electricity supply in the provinces. So currently our focus is to address that, and there is a project for solarization of schools. So once that program is up and running, we're hoping that we will have the digitalization program in place. But notwithstanding, we have initiatives like Island, where we want to our effort is to digitalize the syllabus, put all the syllabus in textbooks and whatever in digital form, so that students can access them. We've tried it with the SD card program, where the syllabus is downloaded into the SD cards, so you can access your learning materials even offline.
Thank you. Your mic.
We used to have scholarship packages, But now with the introduction of the SIG grant, School Improvement Grant, now we don't have the packages, but we provide the teaching and learning resources to the schools. The scholarship program that we are referring to may be at the level of higher education. But for MOPSI now, there is no package like a scholarship for girls and the general scholarship program. And finally, somebody spoke about access to education and the contact hours. Yes, they may not seemingly have the same number of contact hours because itinerant teachers go around. But their role is to support. As I said, the students are integrated. The teacher in the classroom is able to give them the normal interaction. But the itinerant teacher comes for special support. So meaning they should even be having more contact hours than their peers, even though the other challenges may be there. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. It's like we are losing out on our next presentations. So I don't know whether we're going to solve the question till later, because if we do, we are going to lose out on the next session.
So I want to suggest, with your permission and the rest of the team, we can find time between sessions when we have a plenary and address the concerns raised. And then we can also pick some of them bilateral, but it will be a pity if we lose the next sessions. Yeah, we can find time and squeeze the questions there. Yeah. Particularly, I want to expand on the expansion of the family strengthening project because the reform agenda is led by NSPS, and as government tries to move away from project cash transfer to a program-based government ownership. So we'll find time to expand on that, please.
Thank you so much.
I think there is somebody here from the Ministry of Agriculture or from the projects might be able to tackle some of the questions that are asked on agriculture because I might not be around at that time. So, yeah, do we have anybody from agriculture?
So this will be coming in the next session. DPS, they'll be coming in the next sessions. They'll be here. Yes.
Thank you so much. We are very sorry for not being able to give you time for all the questions to be answered right now. However, like Mr. Diba suggested, we will find time within the program to have these things completed. Thank you so much. And then we give a round of applause to our panelists. So thank you so much to all of you. You are free to please go. Thank you so much. Workshop 1 is what? So workshop 1 stays here. Workshop 2 goes to the media room. You are free to choose which workshop you want to attend. The one staying here is on social security, and the other one going there is on agricultural beneficiary registries, farmer registries, and then social registry. So those that are staying here will be under social security. Yes, you are free to choose where you want to be. So the rooms, those staying here, you will hear presentation on the expansion of social security to the informal economy. Those that are going down there, you will hear presentations on beneficiary registries under the Ministry of Agriculture, and also farmers registry, how can they be integrated with social registries. Stevie is social security. Social security. No, let's connect the one on virtual first. He's already on online. He's already online.
He's already online.
Yeah.
Okay, I am on the other control.
Okay. I think Mustafa is here. Okay. So we encourage you to come in front once again. Please come closer. Please come closer.
Connect this guy before we lose him.
Yeah. Let me talk to Mustafa. Doctor, if you can hear me, we now waiting for you to share your screen so that we can kickstart.
Hi, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Loud. Okay, so sorry, I missed that. This is Stephen Kidd. You want me to share my presentation now?
We are starting the presentation on social security in the informal sector. Could you kindly please take your seats? Could you kindly please take your seat? Doctor, if you are ready, introduce yourself and then you start the presentation. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. I hope you can all hear me. I'll share my presentation in a minute. It's a pleasure to be with you all. It's the first time I've engaged with the Gambia, and I'm really sorry that I'm unable to be there. So I'll I'm just trying to find the window to share. It's not sharing yet, right?
No, not yet.
Yeah, I think there's some problem with the link. Sorry, it's not because it's a online link. It's not actually coming up with the presentation that I've got here. Okay, it's right. It says I need to give permission. Could you wait a second?
Doctor, sorry, I think Marco is also online. Marco, if you can hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Give us a minute. We will share with you a different link for you to join that one. You are going to a separate room.
How do I get this?
Sorry, I did not get that. Is it okay for me to stay connected where I'm connected now?
Yes, I'm saying we are going to share a separate link for you to join so that you are supposed to be in a separate room.
Security.
Okay, please go ahead.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, it tells me I have to go to security and privacy to be able to share my link, but I don't know where to find this. Yeah, I have a colleague trying to help me.
Doctor, if you have your presentation, you can share, then we can share it from our end.
Then we can say.
No, I think I managed to fix the problem. Let's just see.
All right, thank you.
Oh no, it still says. I may have to go out and come back in. If you just give me a minute, I'll disconnect and then I'll reconnect.
That's fine. That's fine.
Hello, am I in the correct room now? It's Marco.
Marco, I think you are rejoining the same link. You did not receive.
I've used the link that I received from Philly.
Just now?
Philly sent it about an hour ago.
No, okay. He has sent one 5 minutes ago. You can use that one.
Okay. Just to let you know, I haven't received it. Hassan?
Yes.
I haven't received the link.
Okay, I am sending it on the chat box now.
I'm back now. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so we on the app. So let's see if this works.
Okay, we can see your screen now.
You can? Okay, right, great. So let me know if anything happens. That's a problem. So yeah, I'm really sorry about that. It went to the web-based version initially on the first link, and now I'm on the app, so it seems to work better. Anyway, it's a real pleasure to be here and speak to you about strategies for reaching the informal economy workers with social security. So I'd first like to start by just sort of reminding us, about the sort of rationale for social security and what we're aiming to achieve with social security. All of us face risks across the life cycle, from early childhood through to old age. Just having a child has a major impact on the well-being of families because much higher costs. Often somebody in the family has to give up work. But we face risks all across the life cycle, which can affect our incomes and push families into hardship, particularly those that are in the informal economy. And increasingly, we have these large-scale risks like COVID-19 or climate risks that require a much more comprehensive response. When you look at what this means in terms of who are the poor and the non-poor in society, we can see that there's a lot of change in the groups. Now here, I want to illustrate this by showing two diagrams. If you focus on the one on the right, fortunately it's from Asia, but we've got the same results from different countries in Africa. What these graphs are doing are ranking households from the poorest 20% to the richest 20% in 1 year. In Indonesia, it was in 2009, and looking at the same households 1 year later and where they're ranked in the sort of welfare distribution. And you can see that even amongst the poorest 20% of the population, that we have a lot of change in that period. In Indonesia, there was about, in 1 year, 40% of the poorest 20% were newly dropped into that group. And amongst those on sort of middle incomes, which are generally those in the informal economy, we find a lot of churn, a lot of change. And what this means is that, and which is really important for our social security design, is that this idea that we have that there's a group of the population that is poor and another group that is non-poor is actually just a fictional construct. It's something that we imagine, but isn't real, because the group of the poor is changing all the time in any society, and we can't design our social security programs, particularly if we want to incorporate those in the informal economy, on this basis of an idea that there's one fixed group of the poor and another group of the that's called the non-poor. And what we're trying to achieve with Social Security is to ensure that everyone, across their life cycle has a minimum income and less volatile income. So if we just imagine a person across the life cycle in this orange line, where the incomes are going up and down as they move across the life cycle, as they face different challenges. What we're trying to achieve for everybody with Social Security in any society is ensure that everybody has a minimum income throughout their lives, below which they will not fall, right? And that will be guaranteed by society. And that can only be achieved through government putting in place Social Security schemes that they finance from general taxation, general government revenues. So we want to shift people into this kind of line, green line above, but we also want to ensure that the ups and downs aren't as large. This is what we call consumption smoothing, so that people can have less pronounced falls and across the life cycle. And this you achieve by building a contributory system of Social Security so that people can save at one time in their life and then draw down on those savings later on. For example, if they're unemployed or if they become old and require an old age pension. So we have these two different objectives and so we need to design a system of Social Security that has these two objectives in place. For everybody across the life cycle. Now, a big debate in Social Security is who should benefit from Social Security, right? This is very important when we're talking about the informal economy, because a lot of people say, well, we should only support the poor and vulnerable, which tend to not be necessarily those that are in the informal economy. They tend to be those who are perhaps very old and disabled, or person with severe disabilities, etc., or very, very large families. And people who promote this would say, well, look, we have to target all our schemes at the very poorest in society. But there's another group, another debate globally that says, look, we need to be providing support to everybody across society. All of us would receive the support, including those in the informal economy, and we can achieve this through an inclusive life cycle Social Security system. And before I move on, just want to illustrate that. So therefore, an effective Social Security system in a way should be multi-tiered. So it has three basic tiers upon which you build the system. So if you look here in any society from the poorest to the richest, we would say that in terms of delivering this guaranteed minimum income, you would put in place tax finance schemes. As I mentioned before, you would then build your social insurance or contributory system on top of that, which will reach a certain proportion of the population, generally those in the formal economy. And we look at the challenges of incorporating those in the informal economy in this later on. And then a private tier of additional insurance schemes that people can contribute into if they want to receive higher incomes throughout their lives when they face one of these risks across the life cycle. So you can see in these tiers that you can get the minimum income, but the increasingly high amounts of income through Social Security, but that will come through the contributory system. However, the challenge that we find in many low and middle income countries, and we find this in many countries in Africa that have outside Southern Africa that have begun to build Social Security schemes, is that they tend to build what we call bifurcated schemes that are divided in two, that at the top you have sort of contributory schemes or civil service pensions for those who are in the formal economy, and then at the bottom we have social assistance schemes for the poor, based on this idea that we're going to target the very, very poorest in society. But what we find is that we have then a missing middle, often known as the precariat. But these are those who tend to be in the informal economy. They don't have very, very high incomes. They're still struggling to get by. They're very insecure. They would benefit from Social Security, but by design, they tend to be excluded from the system. And so the challenge is, how do we incorporate this group in the system? I should say that this model that has been followed by many countries is actually kind of model that you found in 19th century Europe, where we put in place poor relief benefits just for the very poor, but we evolved out of that to build much more modern life cycle systems, which I'll talk about a little bit later in my presentation. But this poor relief system that you find in many countries in Africa is when you look across the sort of life cycle, they, on the risks that people face, they don't differentiate by the type of risk. They often put in place just poor relief, social safety net programs for the poorest households in society, try to identify those and give them cash benefits to the household, but not to individuals. Despite the risk that we face as individuals across the life cycle. But these kind of often referred to social safety nets, as the nets, they have lots of holes in, so lots of people drop out and fall through the holes in these nets. And just to illustrate this, I think it's important to understand that.
Hello.
Yes. Was it somebody speaking? No. Okay, I'll continue. So what we find to illustrate these challenges with targeting schemes of the very poorest, I just want to imagine a society of 100 people here, where we have the poorest at the bottom and the richest at the top. And say we want to develop a program that targets the poorest 20% in society. So that would be all those below this line of eligibility. And if we target them, the group targeted, those that receive the benefit, 20% of the population are those in orange. See, some are below the orange line and some are above the orange line. So those who are still in blue are the non-recipients of the program who are under the line of eligibility. They're still in the poorest 20% of the population, further excluded. In this case, it's 10 people out of 20. That gives an exclusion area of 50%. And then above the orange line, we have those in orange who've received it. They shouldn't be receiving the benefits, but they're in effect the inclusion areas. Again, that would be 50%. That would be 10 out of 20. So we did so you might think that these exclusion areas are ridiculously high in this example. Which country is going to develop a system of social security that targets the very poorest and has errors of 50%, i.e. missing out on 50% of those who they intend to bring into the scheme? Well, we did a lot of research on many countries to look at the kind of exclusion areas that you find in real programs that are targeted at the very poorest, many of these using these so-called social registries with proxy means tests. If you know about that, those are examples here in orange. And we found the level of errors, and you found that the best performing scheme globally was in Brazil.
Hello, Steve.
Also familiar scheme there.
Hello,
Yes?
Steve. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Okay. Sorry for this interruption. We have one of the resource persons for the other workshop in here, but we are trying to reach him by email and chat through here, but he's not seeing it. So I just want to announce it so he could hear that he needs to join a different link, and that has been sent to him not long ago. Marco, can you hear me? Yeah, he's Marco Knowles from FAO Rome.
Sorry, Stephen. I haven't received the email with the link. Nor do I see anything in the chat.
Yes. So Hassan has shared it in the chat here. He has also shared it by email. Can you check for an email from Hassan Jallo? So
yes, I'm checking in the chat, and I don't see anything.
Okay. Can you check in your email because he has sent it there too? We are sorry about this.
Okay. Just received right now.
Okay, thank you very much, because the other workshop is still unable to start. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. So I'll continue just to summarize where we are. We're looking at the targeting areas on poverty-targeted programs. And this is important when we're looking around reaching the informal economy. And you find that the best areas exclusion areas were 44% in Brazil. That's almost half of the target population that were excluded, which is pretty much the example that I gave. But as you can see here, as you move up, there are many countries that have much higher exclusion errors. For example, in West Africa, the LEAP program, which is well known, it excludes 94% of its intended beneficiaries. Another program in Africa that we looked at in Kenya, the Hunger Safety Net program, around 70% of its intended beneficiaries. These are pretty much no better than random selection. You may as well have just drawn lots. So and schemes will, most schemes in Africa are performing at around this level. I just want to show you an example of very recent research we've done in Malawi, where they have a social registry using a proxy means test and have been targeting their programs in Malawi. And this is a graph showing who benefits from the program. And we're ranking households from the poorest on the left to the richest on the right. So for 1% of the population, those under the black line are in each 1% are in the program, and those above the black line are excluded from are not in the program. Now, this program is reaching about 8% of the population at the time. So in theory, should have reached everybody to the left of that red line. So they would have all been under the black line there. But as you see, the majority are excluded. There was an exclusion error in Malawi with the social registry and the proxy means test and all the work that's gone into that of 90%. Almost 90% of intended beneficiaries were excluded. Only 10% were correctly selected. And the inclusion error was 90% as well. But as you can see, it was reaching some people on middle incomes. The reality is, of course, in a country like Malawi, may well be the same in Gambia, most people are living in extreme poverty there anyway and would require access to social protection. But the vast majority of the population, 92%, are missed out by this household benefit that is implemented in Malawi. So this is a major challenge, and it's a major challenge when we're designing programs to include those in the informal economy. Now, a very different approach to social security to this one, which is, as I've described, as I say, very much a 19th century methodology, was one that was set out in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948, where it declared that everyone as a member of society has the right to social security, and everybody has the right to a minimum standard of living, and this security across the life cycle risks: childhood, unemployment, sickness, widowhood, old age, disability, etc. That all of us have the right to be protected and have this minimum income, at least right across our lives from birth until death. And so a key choice for countries when they're developing a social security system, if they want to include those in the informal economy, is to decide, do we want to have a kind of system that I've described up to now of these programs for the poor and poor households, which are very much like charity. They're not rights. They're giving charity to those that we look down upon as the poor and vulnerable, often the poor elderly or the poor disabled, and we look down on them and they're different to us. Or do we want to, and as I say, similar to the 19th century system, or do we want to build a modern system, although it may take us a number of decades, where we're building social security for all of us, recognizing that we are all vulnerable at different times. And this is particularly important across Africa, where the vast majority of people, including those in informal economy, are living on very low and insecure incomes and are all subject to these risks. They can lose their work, become disabled, become sick, have children that they're going to be a real stress on the programs, and become old and require a pension. And so we want to move from this as this kind of system that I showed before, this poor relief model, where we have this missing middle, to a kind of system where everybody's included, where at the top we have the rich who can perhaps benefit most from contributory schemes. And as we go down, we bring people in through social security schemes that are financed from general government revenues. And as I said, these will take decades to grow. And the kind of system that you would have then in place that countries have built, and many countries have built as high-income countries, but increasingly middle and low-income countries, are to build a system where we look across the life cycle. We would then provide income security to all children by providing every family with a cash benefit for their children. We would provide benefits for those of working age who in both the formal and informal economy, in times of unemployment, sickness, maternity, etc. In old age, everybody should be guaranteed an old age pension in society, and we'd have in place disability benefits right across the life cycle. And of course, some additional programs for the very poor who slip through what we would here call a social protection floor, which is very different to this kind of social protection floor that all countries signed up to in 2012 in recommendation 202 of the ILO. So we're providing this minimum guarantee to everybody in society, but we're building also a multi-tiered system in which we'll also build contributory schemes on top of this basic guaranteed minimum income that everybody can have. Now, a lot of people argue to bring the informal economy into the labor force, into the social security system. We have to focus on enabling them to contribute into the contributory system, but that's incredibly challenging to do. Because people don't report their incomes, they don't want to get into that, and there's no country that has managed yet to bring those in the informal economy, the majority, into the contributory social protection system. So this is just an example of a country like Thailand that has put a lot of effort into bringing those in the informal economy. This is what we call the voluntary here. They're making voluntary contributions in orange into the contributory social security system that they have in Thailand, which is quite well developed there. And the government has been supporting this by saying, look, if you in the informal economy and you contribute into the contributory system, we'll match your contribution, right? And so they match and give the sort of employer's contribution into the contributory system. And you can see here that there's been a slight growth in the proportion of the labor force in the social insurance system, in the pension system, in this case in Thailand. Those in the formal economy are in blue, and those in the orange are the informal economy. But you can see it's only a tiny proportion. They've been successful only with a tiny proportion. And even amongst those in orange from the informal economy, only 1/3 of this number that we have here are active contributors. So most of them are no longer contributing. And even then, the future pensions that they will receive, because their contributions are so low, because they can't afford to make these contributions, they're lower than you would receive from the tax finance pension in Thailand that's provided from by the government. So it's not very successful. This has put a lot in to develop it. So it's very difficult to see that countries that have much less developed contributory systems would be able to bring in the informal economy into a contributory system. Just to illustrate, one of the key challenges is that members and workers in the informal economy can't afford to make contributions because they're struggling so much. They're on these insecure and low incomes. And so really, if you were to contribute in to a pension system that they might receive the pension in about 30 years' time, they can't afford to do it. They've got to look after their children. Just to illustrate this is again, I'm sorry, an example from Vietnam, where we looked at the social security system there and the impacts of making contributions on family incomes, from the poorest at the left to the richest at the top, and zero would be no change, would be no impact. You can see there's a massive impact reduction in family well-being, in family incomes, a significant reduction in the standard of living for everybody who contributes, around 6 to 8% lower in terms of the incomes. But amongst the very poorest who are coming into the contributory system, the impacts are very, very high. So people really in the informal economy, where we can't force them to contribute into the contributory system, are not going to do it on a voluntary basis because they can't afford to in any country. So we have to rely on a different system to bring the informal economy into the social protection system. And that is, as I say, through the tax finance system. So I want to illustrate this through looking particularly at just one benefit, a key benefit of the old age pension. Right? The old age pension in most society, in most countries that develop modern life cycle systems, is the first benefit that they put in place. They guarantee all of us an old age pension as we reach old age, which is critically important for those in the informal economy. Now, it's a major challenge if you're, if you don't have an old age pension in your country. And I understand the Gambia doesn't have a universal old age pension. So to illustrate this, I'm showing a kind of typical structure that we might find of a family network with older people. Say we have the older people in the larger house living with a multi-generational family with their adult children and their grandchildren, and then they have other children in other houses. In the absence of a secure income in old age from an old age pension, what happens? Well, somebody has to look after the old people, and so the income, the other members of their family, the adult children, have to contribute. They have to give financial support to their elderly parents to help them survive in old age, or they just don't do it, and old people are left aside, which we see unfortunately in many countries. Amongst many older people are just left abandoned. But this has significant impacts on well-being. It's not a life that we want to have if we're working in the informal economy, for our future. So what it does, it has consequences for older people themselves, in that older people are going to struggle. They are dependent on others. They've gone from a lifetime of working, making their own income, to now being dependent on others, which compromises their dignity and means that they can no longer make their own decisions because they have to depend on what their adult children say, which is it can lead to a very sort of undignified last years of life. But it also has lots of consequences for the families, because families, if they do take on the responsibility to look after their elderly parents, particularly those in the informal economy, then they have less to invest in their own children. They can't support their kids to get a good education. They can't invest in their own livelihoods. They can't invest in their own small businesses as much, because they're having to use a lot of their income to support their elderly parents. And this can set back economies and set back societies. And so ensuring a pension for everybody in society, and particularly those in the informal economy, is critically important. And we can do that quite easily. And we see there's many countries that have done this. If governments commit to putting in place social security systems that finance from general government revenues and are given to everybody in society. So just to illustrate this in terms of a multi-tiered system, what this would look like is that you would give your tax-financed Tier 1 pension to everybody in society, from the poorest to the richest, and we give this minimum income there. Everybody would be guaranteed this in society, and then you would build your mandatory contributory system and your civil service pensions on top of this. This is a very successful system, very easy to implement, because all you need to know is the age of somebody, and many countries in Africa have this. It guarantees the coverage of all older people. There's no disincentives to go into the contributory system, so we would hope when we build our contributory, our social insurance, social security systems, we would hope to encourage those in the informal economy in, because they won't lose out if they don't do it. They'll always get more in old age. There's no incentive. If you just had an old age pension that's targeted to those who are poor, they might be encouraged to remain poor in society. But by giving everybody an old age pension, older people can continue to work. We see this in many countries where we have this, where older people are using the money they receive to build small businesses and make themselves better off and help their families, as well, and make lives better for everybody in their household and in their broader family. And we see examples of this system. It works in many countries. It works in some of the poorest countries in Africa. Uganda has recently put in place this kind of pension system. It must be have about the same sort of wealth as the Gambia. Lesotho's had a system for around 20 years. Kenya for about the last 4 or 5 years. But we also find it in high-income countries like Norway and Sweden and New Zealand. And what this is doing is sharing the risk, sharing the financing of the pension system amongst everybody in society, amongst everybody in the informal economy and formal economy, to ensure that those who are in the informal economy and those who are outside the labour force during their working lives, like many women who can't work, are guaranteed an old age pension in old age. And this is the only way that we can guarantee an old age pension for informal economy workers, if we as a society and a country wish to do this. You can have a slight variation over time as you build your contributory system. You could then have more and more people begin to get the civil service pensions and the contributory pensions, and you can withdraw the government financed state pension gradually from those in the informal economy. In this way, you would taper it so that you would gradually withdraw it from those who are getting social insurance pensions. And over time, over say decades, you would expand your pension, and then the amount required from the government to finance from general taxation would reduce over time. But in countries that don't have mature social insurance systems in place, you have to have a flat rate tax finance pension for the next 20 or 30 years. Possibly, if you have civil service pensions, gradually withdrawn it from members of the civil service. But we find examples of this in more mature systems, such as Sweden, which had the previous model, but moved to this about 20 years ago after the social insurance system was developed. But we also find in countries like Vietnam, Brazil, and Mongolia. Once everybody has access to an old age pension, this can make a dramatic impact on society and on the lives of everybody in society, not just older people. Because one, we're giving the cash to the older people, and what we see in terms of our family model of family or kinship network is that the cash is given to the older people through the pension, and older people then use that cash and to help others in the family network, to help themselves, but to help others. We find in Africa, there's studies of old age pensions where over half the income that older people receive is given to their grandchildren to help them, to give better food, to get to school. And this has significant impacts across society. One, it means that everybody, including those in the informal economy, have a dignified last few years of life, hopefully last decades of life, by receiving this state old age pension. So you older people themselves will have better nutrition, will live better, they'll be more healthy. So the health service will be able to save money because it won't have so many sick older people coming to get the services. But we also find older people living more happier lives with reductions in depression. Importantly, though, it also has impacts on households and families. Because if you have an old age pension, then the other family members no longer have to financially support older people so much in old age, so they can invest more in their own children and invest more in their own businesses. You can see in South Africa, which has had a tax-financed old age pension in place for many years, that if you're a child living with an old age pensioner, you're up to 5 centimeters taller than children that don't live with old age pensioners. This is the people, the pensioners are giving their cash to support their grandchildren, give them better nutrition. And you can also see that more children are going to school who live in households with pensioners, and also families are investing much more in livelihoods. But it also helps boost more broadly demand within the economy. By injecting cash into the economy, then you have much more dynamic local economies. Local traders have got much more to sell to older people in their families. Local entrepreneurs can get their businesses going, and those in the informal economy will themselves do better. Those that are in self-employment have their own businesses. I've got see many examples in for example, we've studies in Uganda and Namibia and other places that have these universal pensions of much more dynamic local economies, which will ripple through to then give a more dynamic national economy because of this increased amount of spending that is going out from older people. Now, can countries do this? Can poor countries do this? Countries have put in place a universal old age pension. This is just giving a number of examples of low and middle income countries around the world, showing how much they're spending on their old age pension system, those that have universal coverage pensions. And as you can see here, that many countries are already spending more than 1% of GDP on their old age pension systems. So with 1% of GDP, you can begin to provide a pretty decent old age pension, particularly in countries that don't have a very large aging population currently. What would this mean for Gambia? Well,
Control room,
An
we
impact
lost
on
you.
wealth of older people and their families. That would cost around 0.5% of GDP. Okay, a lot, but it would make a significant transformation of the lives of people in Gambia if you were to do this. Other countries, though, when they've seen that this cost is too high, have decided to say, well, let's start at a higher age of eligibility, perhaps over 75s, over 70s. Kenya started in 2017 with over 70s. Uganda has started with over 80s. So that significantly reduced the cost and make it much more affordable for government. And then over time, you can reduce the age of eligibility and bring more people in and plan to access the financing to be able to put this in place. Countries say, well, it's too expensive for us to do it. Well, this graph here is showing how wealthy were countries when they put in place their tax financed pensions, their state pensions. Looking from the year of introduction of the tax finance pension, from the first one in Iceland in 1890, and how wealthy were countries in a comparative manner in terms of their GDP, relative GDP. And you can see here, where's the Gambia? Well, the Gambia is, as you know, a very poor country. It's down here near the bottom in terms of its relative wealth. But you'll see it's still better off than Iceland was in 1890 when it introduced its pension, but also better off than countries such as Nepal, Timor-Leste, Uganda, when they introduced their old age pensions as well. So it's possible to do, even in a country like Gambia, is to commit to providing all older people an old age pension, perhaps starting at a higher age and reducing that over time. And then further along that, bringing in other life cycle benefits for persons with disability, for children. We can see in low middle income countries across the world, the number of programs, social security programs that are providing universal coverage and ensuring that those in the informal economy are receiving benefits. We find globally 85 programs globally that are offering everybody universal coverage and guaranteeing that everybody in the informal economy can access old age pensions, disability benefits, child benefits. In Africa, there's around 12 of these universal coverage benefits, and 9 of them are old age pensions. Where do we find these old age pensions? Well, we find them mainly in Southern Africa, where countries have been developing these over time. We don't find so many. We don't find them in much more in Northern Africa, apart from really in Cape Verde. And then we find some countries that have inclusive disability benefits. So I'll come in sort of near the end of my talk. The reality of Social Security, though, is that if you wanted to have a real impact, and particularly tax finance Social Security, you have to be willing to spend more. If you spend very little, you'll have very little impact. So South Africa is a good model for a country, if you're looking at a country to follow, as they've over time built an inclusive life cycle system where now most people receive old age pensions, child benefits, and disability benefits. If you look on the left at the South African chart, you can look at the poverty rates before and after, or with and without their social security system, which costs them now 3.4% of GDP. This would be the poverty rate at the top of the orange line without social protection, this life cycle social protection system in South Africa. Be incredibly high poverty rates, particularly amongst older people. But if you look at the top of the grey line, this is the actual poverty rates in South Africa as a result of investing 3.4% of GDP. But of course, it's built this over 20 or 30 years, this kind of system. You shouldn't think in the Gambia you're going to have to do it. But if you look at a country like Sri Lanka that has a poor relief system just targeting the very poorest, you can see that the actual impacts are minimal. They spend very little, and the impacts on the very poor are minimal, largely to a large extent because the transfer values are very low, but also because the majority of the poorest are missing out on their programs. So as I come to the end, I'd just say governments always think that this is a cost, investing in social security that guarantees everybody, including those in the informal economy, access to social protection. But it's not. It's an investment. Some of the wealthiest countries in the world have become wealthy because they've invested in universal social security over time. It helps, as I discussed, build your children's skill sets, so you can invest in education, health, and also in the home environment for children, tackling issues like stunting, undernutrition, and helping families send their kids to school. So you'll improve the skill set of your labor force, which will make you more attractive for external investment, outside investment from other countries. It allows people, gives them security to invest. They know that if they've got for example, a child benefit, that they can invest in a more risky, productive enterprise, and if it fails, they'll still have the money to be able to give their children food and send them to school. So they're more likely to take risks, and that's going to mean you're going to have more profitable businesses. And also, as I said earlier, by injecting cash into your economy, you're generating more demand, more spending, which creates markets for entrepreneurs. Now, this is one of the secrets of high-income countries, because in high-income countries, they are on average injecting 12% of GDP into their social security system, which is creating the dynamic markets, helping create the dynamic markets that we find in high-income countries. So because of time, I'll just drop over these last slides. And so what I would say is I think that countries have to make a decision to decide what kind of model you're going to build of your social security system. One could be this charity paradigm, which I think fails everywhere, where you target the poorest, you exclude those in the informal economy from the system. It's not a very popular system. Or you build something that is based on the citizenship paradigm, where everybody has the right to social security. Everybody over time, as you build your system, will be able to access social security either from the tax financed or from the social insurance system. It costs more, but it has much greater impacts. And importantly, I think for any government thinking of doing this, whereas we see that programs targeted at the very poor tend to be very unpopular because of the poor targeting, the poor quality of the delivery, because the majority of the population miss out, we find that governments, when they introduce universal programs such as universal benefits, also benefit politically. They reap the political rewards, often in elections. In the countries that I've listed here, all of these countries, governments introduced universal old age pensions, and this contributed to them winning the election. And in some countries, in next elections, they increased the transfer values, which also contributed to further wins in the elections, because universal social tax finance programs that reach not only the very poor, but those in the informal economy and those in the formal economy are very, very popular, particularly amongst those who are paying their taxes, but also receiving the benefit in return. And so I think, if I was to put it simplistically, to sort of say, well, look, let's imagine the type of social security system that we want in our country. Let's imagine it's like buying a car. What kind of car do we want to buy? Do we want to buy this kind of second-hand Lada, so these old Russian cars that nobody really wants, that break down all the time, where we have poverty targeted mechanism with proxy means tests or social registries targeting the poor, which are not popular. The family, if they sit in the car breaks down, they're a bit ashamed to be in the car. You as a country are a bit ashamed of your social security system. Or do you want to move to, perhaps over the next 30, 40, 50 years, to build a Rolls-Royce inclusive social protection, social security system, which ensures that everybody is guaranteed access to support across their life cycle, that is really contributing to much more dynamic economy that you have. It'll cost money. It'll take time to get there. High-income countries took many decades to build their systems. Those middle-income countries that are doing it, it's also taken them decades to build it. So in the meanwhile, perhaps in the Gambia, you want to start by building a Toyota system initially, and then move to the Rolls-Royce system over the next few decades, if the political commitment is there to be really willing to transform the lives of everybody in society in the Gambia over time, and ensure that you include all those in the informal economy within the social security system. So I'll stop there for now. And I hope you were able to hear everything that I said.
Thank you, Doctor. This was a great presentation, and the hall was so quiet, I thought no one is here. thank you so much for having you. And then I just wanted to say to our guest here, and the one presenting here is Stephen Keats, Dr. Stephen Keats. He's a principal social policy specialist at the development pathway. Doctor, would you mind to expand more on that? Maybe you can tell us more who you are, and then so that they know the one that is presenting.
Sorry, I forgot to introduce myself at the beginning when we had all the problems with the thing. Yes, I'm a principal social protection specialist at Development Pathways. We're an organization that's based in the UK that specializes in social protection. I've worked in the area of social protection for over 20 years with the old DFID, the UK's aid program. I used to head up the social protection policy team in DFID. Then I moved on to an NGO called Help Age International, where I was the director of policy. And then over the last 13, 14 years, I've been working with Development Pathways, providing advice on social security across low and middle income countries in Africa, Asia, the Pacific, and Latin America. So I've worked in probably over 40 countries on social security. This is the first time that I've had any contact with the Gambia.
Thank you so much, and I hope this is going to be the beginning of many more contacts to come. We will be grateful to have you in person. By the way, Doctor was supposed to be here in person, but due to his busy schedules, he could not make it. But he was able to find time to squeeze his presentation. Doctor, thank you so much for that. And I will now open the floor for a few questions. If you have any question for Doctor, please. Questions, comments, or contributions? One.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you very much, Doctor, for the wonderful presentation. My name is Philly Nyasi. I worked with the Directorate of Social Welfare under the Ministry of Gender, Children, and Social Welfare. Really, your presentation gave us a whole lot of thoughts, looking at the social security and the system we have in place, and how can we see to best match with the welfare system, whereby the old age and also other vulnerable group, can be supported, especially looking at the pension scheme, because we know as a country, most of our old age did not have that kind of support. Although we have a family system whereby in those days we used to support most of our old age, but now that is fading. So we want to have a system too whereby we can support our old age and it will be sustainable. I don't know the best advice you can give to both to the Secretariat and also the Director of Social Welfare, and see how we can work closely with the social security to also come up with some low scheme housing for especially for our low income earners or those civil servants who in income is not that much. Because we know the average civil servant, even to have let's say a good housing is a challenge. So we know how we can work closely around that, so that at least at the end of the day, after serving or and then going up to that age, you'll know that there's something for me at the end of the day when I retire. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other question? Okay, one more.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Malam, for the moderation and, of course, the brilliant presentation. I am Harun Abaji, a social worker at the Directorate of Social Welfare. My question is looking at the context of the Gambia. as a third world country, of course, highly dependent on tax to finance social protection programs, and of course, with support from donor partners and technical assistance. What are some of the interventions that, as a tax-dependent country, we need to implement to be able to sustain the financing of social protection program? Of course, social security is a very important human right issue. And if you look at the Sustainable Development Goals 1.3 that emphasize on implementing social protection programs or policies to at least ensure that universal coverage at national level exists, what are some of the policy advice or regulations that you, being an expert in social protection, would have advised for us as a country to be able to put in place in order to achieve or achieve the Sustainable Development Goal target 1.3 that really emphasize on issue of sustainable social protection? Thank you.
Thank you, Haruna. Do we take one more or two?
Good afternoon, Doctor. My question is, first of all, my name is Abdullah Jara. I'm one of the permanent secretaries at the Office of the President. My question is, how can we leverage corporate social responsibility, especially in the private sector, to finance social protection?
Thank you. The last question.
You came in very quiet. Any? Okay. No, okay, let me go here first.
Hello, thank you very much, Doctor, for your presentation. My question is regarding in your suggestion, in your presentation, you suggested that the Gambia could use the age of 80. So I'm just worried in terms of the life cycle of people in the Gambia, especially secondly that people who retire at the age of 60, and also the low salaries that are really paid to people. Would it actually be advisable to peg it at 80 years? Thank you very much.
Last question, please.
Last one. Joe?
Yes, thank you, Doctor. My name is Hamadi Diop. I'm a social worker also from the Directorate of Social Welfare. During your presentation, I'm seeing that most of the social protection fundings are coming from either the rich or the employed or probably the private sector. Now, in the Gambian context, with the low employment of people, I don't know. I'm just trying to match things. The unemployed, like those in the informal sector, the elderly people. And how could the employed one, with the level of the rate of the employed one, the low level of the employed one, how can they be able to at least contribute to those elderly people who are supposed to benefit?
Thank you, Doctor. You can.
We're getting more hands, but okay, let's get that round.
Let us have the answers.
We'll come back.
Doctor, over to you.
Yeah, thanks very much. I think there was a common theme through a lot of the questions around the finance and sustainability of the scheme. I could have given a whole different talk focusing on those areas. In terms of how you have sustainable financing of your schemes. And I think if you give me a little bit of time just to explain the picture. You know, the key thing in any successful, if country wants to really a successful society economy, you have to increase government revenues within any society for investing in all kinds of public services. Now, the problem that many countries find is that I don't know about the Gambia, but in many of the countries I'm doing, citizens don't trust government. They don't trust them to spend their money well, right? And you can undermine trust through the delivery of poor quality public services. And often, social protection programs that are targeted at the poor are poorly delivered with bad targeting. They undermine trust in government. So people are less willing to pay the taxes because there's not a strong social contract between the population who, if there's a strong social contract, you'll pay your taxes because you'll know you'll get good quality universal public services back in return. So I think, for any country that wants to get sustainable financing over time, you have to increase the broader government revenues, in terms of your tax to GDP ratio, which can only be done really by improving trust between government and citizens and therefore improving the social contract. Now, I think globally there's evidence that you can do this by putting in place universal cash benefits, universal social security benefits, because if a government says, for example, we will guarantee that everybody in old age has income security by giving you an old age pension, any government, any country, including the Gambia, within 1 year can deliver on that promise and begin to build trust. And as you build more trust in your citizens by delivering more higher quality services, your government revenues will gradually go up and people will be able to pay. Now, how do you do it in terms of tax? I don't know the tax system in the Gambia. I don't know about how many people are paying income tax. I presume very few. I don't know if you have value-added tax or sales taxes there. But one thing, if you didn't know, if you want to introduce a value-added tax, which in most countries brings in the majority of government revenues, or some other form of sales tax, one way to do it is to give everybody in society a tax refund, right? Which, an income tax system, you can do that. Value-added tax, it's very difficult to give a tax refund because we don't know we don't know who's paid the tax because everybody's paying it. So what you would do for a tax refund, if your government wants to increase or introduce value-added tax, and perhaps or expand value-added tax, is to give a tax refund. Your tax refund could be by providing everybody back with those taxes, a pension in old age, every child a child benefit, every person with disability a benefit, and so you receive the income from the value-added tax, and you give it back so that the impact of that tax on the majority of vulnerable families in the country is minimal or zero, but it builds this strong social contract, so people are seeing that they will get this back. And we're seeing countries that have put in place universal schemes that they have invested money, and the levels of investment have increased because these schemes are popular, because people trust the government, and government revenues over time can expand significantly. So that's the big picture in terms of how you can have investments and sustainability. But if you just depend on giving programs to the poor, then they are not sustainable because majority of taxpayers don't receive the benefits. Therefore, they're not willing to pay the tax to fund those programs. On some of the more specific questions then, I think the question on the housing, I think there's no easy answer. Housing, you guarantee your housing through your incomes and your working age. If people don't have enough incomes in working age, then it's going to be difficult to ensure that they have a good quality housing and old age. And I would say certainly for older people, that your first focus should be on providing the old age pension, because we see in evidence across Africa that older people who receive old age pensions invest almost a lot of that in improving their housing themselves in a cost-effective manner. And there's lots of evidence around that. I think on the question of leveraging corporate social responsibility, to finance social protection. I actually don't think corporate social responsibility is a source of financing for social protection. I think that's a kind of what firms should, businesses should do in a form of charity to help society. What firms need to do, businesses need to do, is pay corporation taxes, ensure every employee is paying income tax, making certain that everybody's registered to pay income tax. These are the obligations of business, and that's about them properly contributing into the national coffers, the national taxation, by fulfilling on laws and not trying to avoid tax. Corporate social responsibility, I think, is a different issue. We need to focus on issues of corporate, taxes that are taxing the profits of businesses and incomes of employees. And I think the final couple of questions. I think I wasn't recommending that you would start at age 80 with a pension. I was just saying this is what Uganda ended up doing because they thought it would be too expensive. I think it's much better to start at a lower age. But what we find in countries, for example, Nepal, which was much poorer than the Gambia when it introduced its universal old age pension, it started at 75 years of age. It was a very minimal amount of funding, very easy for any government to finance. And then over time, the age of eligibility reduced. And so recently it fell to 67 years of age. And it's now providing a very good value old age pension, costs 1.3% of GDP. In a country that is still poor, but was, as I say, poorer than the Gambia when it started. And I think the final question is the how can the employed benefit older people? Well, it's through paying tax. Everybody employed pays tax, either those in the formal economy through the income tax or through general sales taxes or VAT or other taxes. By the employed paying their taxes, getting into the tax system, then they will fund today's older people, and then today's employed people will be tomorrow's older people, and so tomorrow's employed people will then fund them. It's and so we get intergenerational transmission of support to everybody. Any older person now is supported by the employed now, and today's employed will be supported in their old age by tomorrow's employed. And it's a system of equity that benefits us all. And this is what we can gain through a universal social security system that is financed from general government revenues. But built on top of that, you build a strong social insurance system for all those who can contribute to have more whenever they face challenges and risks in society like disability, unemployment, or old age. I hope that sort of gives some idea on the questions. It would take me a lot longer to explain this in much more detail.
Thank you, Doctor. We are seriously constrained with time. I think we will have to move to the next presentation. But we want to say thank you so much for the time you gave us, and we hope to engage you more. Maybe the only thing that I want to ask from you is to share the presentation with us so that we will be able to have it with us here.
Yeah, sure, I'll do that now. Okay,
thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. I'm sorry I couldn't be there with you. Next time, I think if I give them good advance warning, then I'll be able to set aside time to travel. Thank you.
So thank you so much. A round of applause for Doctor. Thank you so much for having you in our midst today. And then, like I said, we hope to have more engagements with you. We have the Social Security and Housing Finance Corporation who are in charge of Social Security in the Gambia. They are also part of the audience, and next is going to be their presentation. Maybe we will be able to give them your contact so that you can discuss at a bilateral level. So thank you so much once again, and then thank you to the audience, and we want to move to the next presentation. Thank you all. Our next presenter is going to be the Managing Director of the Gambia Social Security and Housing Finance Corporation. We are indeed sorry for taking your time because we were afraid of losing Dr. Stephen Keats. Unfortunately, I learned later that you are also going to be engaged at around 1. So I don't know, kindly squeeze us within that limited time and then share with us some of the things that you have for us. Thank you so much. Is MD around? Okay. MD, we are very sorry. Once again, we apologize. You want to sit there? It's fine. You can sit there and use the mic. You can use that mic. Okay. If it is okay with you to stand, you can come here.